Shocking truth behind Israel and Judah. Why did God's tribes battle to the bitter end? In a world swirling with legends and lore, two ancient tribes stood against each other, their stories stained by blood and betrayal. Israel and Judah, names that echo through time, steeped in battles that shook the very foundations of faith. What would drive people, chosen by God, to turn against one another? Underneath the sun-scorched sands of history, buried secrets are waiting to come to light. Picture it, the sun setting over a dust-laden battlefield, golden rays illuminating the clashing swords and the crimson splashes on hard earth. The conflicting armies appeared like wild shadows, fierce and chaotic. The air hung thick with tension, whispers of treachery floating between soldiers. Friends became foes, unity shattered. Rumors tell of priests wielding power like weapons, pitting families against each other, casting fear like a dark spell. What kind of malevolence could twist loyalty into strife? First came the prophecies. Mesmerizing yet terrifying, predicting devastation from within. Those faithful to the ancient texts felt the weight of dreadful predictions pressed down on their chests. They spoke of a once holy land turned foul, where God's voice was drowned out by discord. People trembled as each word echoed as if a haunting chant, luring them into a storm from which there seemed no escape. And somehow, against every ounce of hope, the battle called to them, promising glory even in destruction. As villagers hushed to listen, the crackling of wood and distant hulls morphed into chants of war. In front of their eyes, families dwindled and alliances crumbled. Around them, a murmur of shock spread through the crowd at every fallen soldier. Could this truly be the plan ordained from the heavens? The air quaked with uncertainty, and the ground rumbled as if God himself stirred in anger. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. And yet, as bloody banners flew high, rumors of a hidden truth began to weave their way into the fabric of the conflict. Could it be that behind the chaos lied a magnificent treasure, one that could either unite or destroy them all? The tension was electric as whispers floated from the dark corners of taverns and inside sacred temples. What if the truth could change everything? Every heart raced in anticipation, every mind plagued with questions. Would redemption come too late, or would the bitter end seal their fate forever? The night cloaked the battlefield, its darkness punctuated only by the flickering torches held by anxious soldiers. They stood rigid, armor glinting faintly under the pale moonlight, waiting for the inevitable clash. Whispers danced through the ranks, igniting fears and fueling the hunger for vengeance. The air was so thick with apprehension that it seemed to breathe along with them. Around the campfire, a heated debate erupted among the warriors. They were torn between loyalty to their tribe and the rising tide of doubt about their leader's motives. What if they lied to us? Murmured one soldier, his voice barely above a whisper. We've lost brothers. For what reason? His words struck the heart of many, causing faces to tighten with worry. Meanwhile, the ambient sounds of clanging swords and distant cries seeped in, echoing the reality of their dire situation. In the hearts of Israel, the lure of treasure gnawed at their resolve. Legend spoke of a sacred artifact, hidden in the Valley of David, said to possess incredible powers that could turn the tide. But was it worth the bloodshed? Questions buzzed in the air like restless fireflies, ready to ignite into chaos. As the moon reached its zenith, a shrouded figure slipped away from the gathering. Priests, known as the voice of God, were not far behind. Their faces were masked, but the urgency in their movements was clear. They believed the time had come to unveil the real truth, to broadcast what was hidden beneath layers of deceit. The churning emotions of the soldiers were a volatile mix of fear and curiosity, an explosive combination that threatened to erupt. A low rumble echoed in the distance, an omen scented with menace. The figure reached the altar, the sacred ground hidden from the light of day. Unfurling a tattered scroll, the whispers of ominous prophecies began to leak into the air. A time of reckoning. A path of carnage lies before you, it warned, chilling the bones of those marked by power. The priests, while holding the relic, exchanged knowing glances. What did it reveal that had eluded others? The following morning dawned, and the battlefield transformed into a living nightmare. Tension peaked. Allies clashed as the urge for revenge consumed every heart. Men charged, swords raised, shouts merging with the wails of the dying. In the chaos, a piercing scream cut through, one soldier innocent and terrified tripped, falling into the fray and instantly regretting his choice. Holding his breath, he scrambled to find safety, glancing around at the merciless tide of war. Panic surged within him. In that moment, the weight of a heavy secret settled on his chest. What if this conflict was a mere shadow of something even darker? As the sun arched higher, a glimmer in the distance caught his eye. Could it be? The brilliant shine seemed to pulse, begging for attention. The heat of battle faltered for an instant, drawing every gaze toward the source. Breathless anticipation gripped him, the sensation of hope and horror intertwined. Every soul on that battlefield felt it, the promise of change, an unknown destiny looming just beyond reach. But could this promise bring salvation or annihilation? As dust settled in the air and a tense silence faltered, a singular thought echoed in every heart: what if the truth uncovered here would unravel their very existence? Would the treasure bind them together, or would it tear them apart, leaving nothing but ghosts of a battle long lost? The moment of truth was approaching. Chaos reigned as the battlefield hung suspended in disbelief. The glint of the sun caught something, a shimmer that felt magnetic, a signal meant for those desperate enough to reach for it. Soldiers froze mid-motion, eyes wide, mouths agape. For just a heartbeat, the cries of war faded to whispers, a collective breath held in anticipation. Marek, the young soldier who had stumbled into the rampage, could feel the adrenaline surge through his veins. The pulse of his heart echoed louder than the clang of swords as he turned, searching for the source of that radiant light. His instincts kicked in, propelling him forward against the tide of dragging bodies and cries of agony. Each step felt like a dance with death, yet the allure of the treasure called louder than his sheer will to survive. In the chaos, he caught a glimpse of armor-clad figures shifting in the horizon, a group of priests, their robes flowing like water, frozen in prayer. Hands raised toward the heavens, they seemed oblivious to the chaos swirling around them. Their chanting filled the air, threading through the sounds of the battlefield, growing stronger in its intensity. Then came an unexpected crack, a thunderous noise cascading across the battlefield that jolted the men from their trance. The earth itself felt crushed under a weight unseen. Marek's heart raced. This was not an ordinary battle. It was something deeper, something that pierced through the veil of fate that had kept them blind. Look! A voice screamed from the ranks, pointing toward the glimmering light. It erupted into brilliance, illuminating the battlefield with a ghostly glow. Electric shock waves rippled through the air, igniting a wave of energy that surged among the warriors. Fear and hope intertwined, twisting into a potent fuel they had never known. But the priests, what were they hiding? Marek diverted his gaze back to them, and in that moment, everything shifted. Shadows moved within their ranks, forms breaking free from the incantations. A figure stood before them, tall and imposing with glowing eyes. The artifact, it is ours. The figure roared, voice booming across the field, stirring fury and curiosity alike. The soldiers divided, some stood transfixed, others surged forward, claiming loyalty to the priests, driven by visions of glory and salvation. Marek couldn't move, could barely think. The tension banded around him like a grip tightening. And then, the dark truth crashed through the enchantment. His brothers, his companions, they were being led astray. Their quest for glory masked the reality of betrayal lurking just beneath the cracks of their desperation. A collective gasp echoed around him, resonating. They weren't just fighting for victory, they were fighting to reclaim a lost prophecy, a relic that harbored unspeakable power, and in doing so, risking their very souls. Marek's body trembled. This revelation would shatter everything he believed. Was the treasure righteous, or was it a curse? The priests began to chant louder, their voices throbbing with fervor. As the first rays of the sun dipped into the horizon, a low hum enveloped the ground, vibrating through every warrior as if the earth itself beckoned them closer, promising unimaginable power but holding something darker, a choice that could bind or destroy them all. Merrick felt it, the air thick and electric, like standing at the edge of a storm. The thunder of conflict grew again, but now, another battle raged within him. Torn between allegiance and truth, he could feel the tug of destiny directing his path. The weight of decision loomed large. What would he choose? Would he defy the call of deception and stand for the truth? Or would he succumb to the seductive pull of power, forever altering the course of his fate? The moment of choice was upon him. Merrick stood frozen, a heartbeat away from the chaos that enveloped him. The clamor of steel and screams began to blend back into the forefront of his mind, but the mesmerizing glow of the artifact tugged insistently at his senses. It was both beautiful and terrifying, promising everything he had ever yearned for, yet threatening to consume not just his soul but those of the men who fought alongside him. The priests' chant crescendoed into a deafening roar, their robes fluttering like flags in the wind. Merrick's eyes darted between the imposing figure with glowing eyes and the brothers in arms caught in a trance, driven by an unquenchable thirst for glory. "Fight!" Someone shouted, a battle cry ringing out an unwitting rallying call to madness. "Shatter the illusion!" Merrick cried out suddenly, his voice hoarse but steady. "This isn't right." He thrust his gaze at his fellow soldiers, desperate to fracture the spell that seemed to hold them captive. "Can't you see? We're being used." A handful of men turned to him, their expressions flickering with confusion, then anger. "You're weak." A voice barked. "Join us or step aside." They were too far under the priest's grip to see the truth, caught in the siren call of the power that radiated from the artifact like a dark sun. Merrick felt a wave of despair wash over him. His mind raced. What if they all turned on him? What if standing against the tide meant losing everything he had fought for? But amidst that fear, another emotion ignited resilience. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward, fists clenched. "You were soldiers of honor," he shouted, his voice rising above the din. "Not pawns. Remember why you fight." The earth shook beneath his feet, a tremor rippling out as the glowing figure loomed closer. Its eyes blazed with rage. "Foolish boy. This is your last warning." Shadowy figures shifted, weapons glinting like stars. The priests began moving, a methodical march toward him, each step thudding like the heartbeat of war. A blast of heat struck Merrick as the artifact's light intensified, engulfing the area in a blinding glare. It was as if the heavens themselves poured forth anger at his defiance. Instinctively he shielded his eyes. "Run! Now!" A soldier nearby shouted, a glimmer of understanding breaking through. Without thinking, Merrick sprinted toward the soldiers still tethered to the priests, pulling them back from the brink. "Can't you feel it?" he gasped, the air suddenly thick with foreboding. "This isn't our fate." But as he moved, chaos erupted. The glowing figure surged forward, its hand raised as dark energy swirled like a cyclone. Merrick felt the air shift around him, a magnetic force drawing him toward that brilliant light. He stumbled, nearly falling, praying for strength to resist the pull. "Stop this!" he shouted again, desperation coloring his voice. "We are not meant to be creatures of darkness." A moment of hesitation flickered in the eyes of a few soldiers, but it was drowned in the roar of the priests, the energy snapping like a whip in the air. They lunged for him, a tide of fury and power fed by the artifact's promise. The ground began to split, fissures formed, exposing the dark void beneath. A horrific howling filled the air, drowning out even the screams of the injured. Merrick's heart raced, panic clawing at him. Every instinct told him to flee, to abandon this cursed fight. But was there any escape if he left his brothers behind? In the end, will you choose power or brotherhood? A voice inside him demanded. The question reverberated, echoing through his mind as images of his comrades flashed before him, joyful memories, desperate moments of unyielding loyalty, and he knew, above all, he had to fight for those bonds, for something real. As the light pulsed one final time, he threw himself into the fray, eyes set on the artifact, breathing in life, ready to confront whatever horrors came next. Would he save them? Or would he lose everything to the darkness that craved dominion? In that pulse of choice, the battlefield shuddered, and destinies intertwined in ways they could never expect. Marek's feet hit the ground with a force born from sheer determination. The chaos around him swirled, shouts of rage, the clanging of metal, and the sickening crack of bodies colliding. His heart pounded in sync with the madness, a steady drumbeat fueling his resolve. But that flickering, haunting light, it tugged at him, whispering threats and promises with equal fervor. He lunged toward the nearest soldier, grasping the man's arm. "Listen to me!" Marek shouted, urgency surging in his veins. "This isn't about glory anymore. It's about survival, our survival." The soldier hesitated, brows knitting together as confusion danced across his face. Just as hope ignited in Marek's chest, a priest nearby shouted, "You will all serve. Bow to the power of the artifact." The priests advanced, their voices rising in unsettling harmony that shook the very air. Marek released the soldier, turning to face the advancing wave of priests. Each chant reverberated through his bones, dark incantations wrapping around him like chains. "Fight back!" he roared, voice strained. "They're using us as shields for their greed." The soldiers stared, some rocking back and forth as if wrestling with a painful truth. For a brief moment, Marek saw splashes of clarity in their eyes. Then, the glowing figure erupted forward, an embodiment of rage and ancient wrath. "Embrace your fate!" it howled, a voice that split the air like thunder. The ground rumbled again, fissures widening, casting shadows that danced ominously against the flickering glow. Marek felt his stomach tighten. "Don't listen to it!" he yelled, swinging around to address his comrades. "This isn't just a fight. It's a trap." Just then, the darkness surged. Marek stumbled back as shadowy tendrils whipped out toward him from the glowing figure, each one flicking like a serpent ready to strike. He ducked, the air charged with an otherworldly energy that threatened to push him deep into the void opening beneath their feet. "Hold on to each other. Stay together!" someone shouted. Another soldier, eyes clear now, rallying the shifting, confused ranks. Marek grabbed hold of his own sword, feeling the familiar weight bring him comfort amidst the terror. He had to act. They couldn't succumb to despair. With newly ignited courage, Marek stepped forward again, fingers trembling but firm around his weapon. "A single thread may break, but together we are unyielding," he cried out. The words felt heavier than iron, weighty, yet liberating. Those around him began to nod, absorbing the truth like desperate flowers seeking the sun. The glowing figure hesitated, the intensity dimming ever so slightly. Marek took his chance, driving forward with reckless abandon. "We choose brotherhood. We won't fall for this trickery." As he closed the distance, something unexpected happened. The priests' chants faltered, a ripple of uncertainty flickering across their composed faces. Marek felt the sudden change in the atmosphere. It felt like shattering glass, fragile and dangerous. Then it hit him, a vision of the future swam before his eyes, dark and grim. What would happen if they lost? The destruction, the bondage to the artifact's will, it tore at his heart. But if he could sever that chain, break the priest's hold, a surge of adrenaline coursed through him. Marek plunged deeper into the fray, leading his soldiers against the darkness. His sword clashed against those of the priests, and the sound echoed against the trembling earth, but with each clash, the light of the artifact pulsed violently, almost as if in despair. Could the power within it be their ally, or was it merely a cruel joke? He could almost feel its pull again, a promise of immeasurable strength. "Marek!" shouted another soldier, the man's voice a blend of fear and urgency. "Behind you!" Whipping around, Marek saw a silhouetted threat emerging from the shadows, teeth bared, eyes alight with the hunger of betrayal. Before he could react, the figure lunged at him, time stretching in the chaos. And just then, he realized who it was. The betrayal cut harder than any blade, chilling him to the core. This was only the beginning. Betrayal doesn't always come from enemies, he breathed, staring into the fierce face of the one he once called brother. What awaited him now could mean the end or an unexpected redemption. No matter what shadow lurked around the corner, Merrick felt the battle rising to a fever pitch, one that might change everything. But would he find a way to save the broken bonds, or would this darkness consume him entirely? Merrick barely had time to process the wild storm of emotions swirling in his heart before the figure struck. Their weapons collided with a reverberating clang that echoed across the chaos. It was his brother, Tarek, eyes wild with a power Merrick had once thought devoted to their shared cause. Tarek! Merrick gasped, his breath stuck in his throat. Why are you doing this? Tarek's face twisted in a mix of fury and desperation. You don't understand, Merrick. The priests, they promised me power. We can stop this madness forever. Just join me. Merrick's mind raced. The familiar bond he cherished was crumbling before him, transformed into a chasm of betrayal. Power at what cost? He shouted, dodging another strike as Tarek lunged again. This isn't the way. You're being used just like everyone else. Their strikes danced like lightning in the storm, each blow fueled by the raw emotions of their past brotherly loyalty turned into deadly conflict. Merrick could see the momentary flicker in Tarek's eyes, a glimmer of the bond they used to share, but anger quickly shadowed it again. Let go, Merrick. It's too late for you. Tarek snarled, his voice breaking with pain. Merrick parried the next blow, adrenaline surging through him. Was there no way to reach his brother? The clashing of swords was becoming a symphony of heartache amid the battle raging around them. He could hear the screams of the others, their fights melding into a dense cacophony that bore down on his mind. Desperation fueled Merrick, urging him to appeal to Tarek's buried memories. You remember the promises we made as kids, don't you? We swore we'd stand together against any evil, no matter the cost. This isn't the answer. Tarek hesitated, his weapon faltering for just a heartbeat. That was all Merrick needed. With a quick movement, he swept low, knocking Tarek's weapon aside. Their eyes locked, and for a second, silence fell around them, punctuated only by the distant roars of battle, but the moment shattered. Tarek's expression twisted. You think you can change my mind? You think I'd give up everything? He pushed forward, striking again, rage igniting his every movement. Merrick could feel the desperation turning into a suffocating haze. You're not this person. He shouted, pressing forward, attempting to break through Tarek's shields. You're better than this. You don't know anything about me. Tarek screamed, his face contorted with anger. I've tasted power. I can have control over this chaos. That artifact, it can be ours. Chaos swirled around them, as the priests chanted louder, their voices blending with the flickering light threatening to engulf them. Merrick realized the artifact's influence over Tarek was stronger than ever, its power weaving deceit into his brother's mind. Mounting dread surged through Merrick. With the fading of their bond came a terrible realization: this fight could cost not just lives, but the very soul of his brother. This light is a curse. Merrick yelled, desperation coloring his voice. It's not power. It's the prison they put us in. You're fighting for their greed. But Tarek, shrouded in a mist of rage and sorrow, pushed him away. You're too blind to see. We could be unstoppable. As steel clashed again, this time it felt like more than a fight. It felt as though they were wrestling destiny itself, struggling against fate. Merrick ducked under Tarek's swing, heart pounding in his chest, trying to find a way to free his brother from the dark chains binding him. Suddenly, a fierce burst of light erupted from the artifact, booming with energy. Merrick was momentarily blinded, but through the haze, he saw shadows writhing, the priests faltering under the pressure of their own creation. Then he noticed subtle shifts in the battle around them, soldiers frozen in shock, and the chance of the priests dwindling. Maybe they weren't the only ones watching this dark collision of wills unfold. Without thinking, he shouted over the chaos, "All of you. Do you see? This isn't power. This is enslavement. We fight for our freedom." But the stakes were higher than he ever fathomed, the darkness whispering in his ear, tempting him with the promise of victory. Could he find a way to break the hold, for both Tarek and the others? Or would the choices they made cost them everything? As the shimmering light enveloped the battlefield, Marek felt the tremor underfoot again, and fear gripped him. A new wave of darkness was rising. What would emerge from the shadows? Would it bring liberation or devastation? Only time would tell. The ground trembled beneath Marek's feet, the intensity of the light pulsating like a heartbeat. He strained his eyes through the blinding brilliance, searching for any sign of Tarek as shadows flickered erratically around them. A piercing scream tore through the cacophony, snapping Marek's focus back to the chaos surrounding him. He caught sight of a priest staggering, clutching his head in agony, as if the brilliance of the artifact unleashed a violent explosion in his mind. With their chants faltering, the remaining priests exchanged frantic glances. Fear frosted their faces, and uncertainty gripped them like a vice. Marek knew he had to capitalize on this rare moment of weakness. "Tarek!" he shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. "Fight it. You're stronger than this power. Remember who we are." For a brief moment, the fierce rage flickering in Tarek's eyes dulled. Those memories, they were still there beneath the layers of darkness. Marek felt a spark of hope igniting within him. But just as quickly, that glimmer of recognition flickered out. Tarek's face twisted once more, as if a snake were coiling tighter around his mind. "No. I want to go back." Tarek roared through gritted teeth, lunging forward with renewed ferocity, the weight of his weapon pressed against Marek's chest. The sheer force knocked Marek back, sending him tumbling into a heap. Pain shot through him, the icy hand of fear forcing him to gasp for air. Gritting his teeth, Marek pushed himself back to his feet, surveying the havoc around them. The soldiers seemed to freeze, caught in the grip of indecision, echoes of battle fading. Marek's pulse raced as he watched the priests retreating further from the artifact's light, their shadows contracting as if the brilliance repelled them. "Look!" Marek bellowed, aware of the urgency. "This power consumes your very essence. It's not freedom, it's the chains of greed binding us all." He thrust an arm toward the priests, trying to distance Tarek from their grip. Tarek faltered, his grip on his weapon wavering. "Chains? Or a path to greatness?" he hissed, eyes darting around. "You don't understand. They showed me visions. We could be kings of this chaos." "No!" Marek shouted, steeling himself. "You were meant to be a protector, just like me. Don't let them twist our legacy." A stillness settled over the battlefield. It was as if the world held its breath, waiting. The faces of the soldiers shifted, confusion melting into concern as they absorbed Marek's words. The storm of chaos around them paused at the precipice of a choice between light and darkness. Desperate, Marek pressed on. "Remember, Mother? Our promise. We vowed to fight for those who couldn't, not to enslave them. This isn't what she wanted." Tarek shook his head violently, struggling against an unseen force. "Stop!" he screamed, voice cracking like a whip. "I can't. I won't let them take this from me." The energy in the air shifted sharply, thickening like fog, and Marek's heart dropped. Something darker was stirring. Shadows coalesced in the corner of his vision, swirling in response to Tarek's turmoil. Figures began to emerge, grotesque forms that leered menacingly from the rounding darkness. Marek's chest tightened. "Tarek, please!" he cried again. "Help me fight. Together we can awaken our people." But a heavy darkness poured in, smothering their bond with each word. Tarek's face contorted, a battle raging within, and Marek could feel the tide started to shift. The congregation of shimmering light was dissipating, while the looming shadows drew closer. Frantic, Merrick stepped forward, emotion spilling over. This isn't just about us. We need to protect everyone. But even as he spoke, the malevolent shapes coiled closer, drawing energy from the artifact, growing stronger with each pulse of light dimming. The shrieks of the priests crescendoed, warning cries intermingling with the groans of gathering shadows. Merrick's breath seized as he prepared for the inevitable confrontation, knowing that the darkest forces were rising. With a swift breath, he steeled himself, ready to charge. Forward again. But could he save Tarek before it was too late? As the shadows morphed into indistinct figures, a chilling whisper slithered through the air, join or perish what awaited them in the depths of that darkness. Would Merrick's final plea pierce through the shadows, or would Tarek be lost forever? Merrick felt an icy grip of panic seize him as Tarek stood there, rigid and torn between fierce loyalty and a darkness that threatened to eclipse all that was good. The shadows shifted closer, tendrils of darkness weaving through the gathering mist. They were whispering, each word a dark promise that danced at the edges of Merrick's hearing. The levity of air thickened, pressing against his chest. Tarek! Merrick shouted again, desperation spilling from his voice as the shadows twisted, their shapes elongating and creeping. You're stronger than this. Remember our oath to protect our people. Not to enslave. Tarek's eyes widened, momentarily flickering with recognition. But before Merrick could seize the moment, the shadows pulsed violently, as if responding to an unholy command. No. Tarek howled, the sound raw and filled with anguish. The weapon in his hands trembled, wavering as the dark claws of the shadows curled around him. Merrick could almost sense the weight of Tarek's soul battling against the clutches of despair. He stepped closer, heart pounding in rhythm with the pulsing light of the artifact. With every beat, he could feel the chaos mounting, threatening to swallow everything in its wake. Fight. Remember who we are, remember our family, our home. Focus on that. Just then, a piercing scream erupted from the shadows like nails on glass. The figure of a priest burst forth from the dark, eyes wide with terror, mouth frozen in a silent scream. A flash of fury swept through Merrick, his instincts screaming that the priests had been twisted, turned against their own. They're not our enemies, Tarek. They are victims just like us. As if to punctuate his words, the air exploded with otherworldly energy, crackling and sparking like a live wire. The artifact's brilliance surged wildly, casting eerie reflections on their faces, illuminating the fear and fury alike. Merrick reached out, his fingers grazing Tarek's arm, battling against the dark presence wrapping around him. Tarek jerked, his breath hitching as he swayed on the brink of succumbing. Merrick, it's too late. He gasped, voice shaking. I see it all, I can't turn back. No. You're wrong. Merrick pressed forward, heart racing, his pulse thrumming in his ears. It's never too late to choose a side. We can break free from this curse together. Their surroundings erupted into a frenetic dance of light and shadow. The soldiers, previously frozen in confusion, rallied. Some charged forward, stepping out of the grasp of chaos, the light rekindling within them. Others hesitated, trapped in the fear of falling into the embrace of dark powers. Merrick could see the faces of his brothers in arms stricken with doubt and dread. Suddenly, the dark energy surged, knocking Merrick back. He fell hard, the ground scraping his skin. Shadows twisted around him like serpents, pulling away his breath, constricting tighter. In that moment of darkness, Merrick realized the truth: the shadows thrived on fear. With renewed grit, he shouted, face them. Don't let those shadows feed off your doubt. Stand firm. Above the melee, he saw Tarek shudder, the inner struggle apparent in every taut muscle. Join or perish, the haunting whisper coiled again, seeping through the chaos. Fear flickered in Tarek's eyes, reflecting the darkness that clutched at him. As Merrick pushed through the swirl of chaos, he reached for Tarek's hand, grasping it tightly like a lifeline amidst the storm. Together, brother. Fight. We can conquer them. But just as their fingers met, the shadows writhed in protest, a dark wave rushing towards them, ready to swallow their last hope. Would the pull of darkness finally overtake them, or could they reclaim the bond that once made them unstoppable? The moment stretched, waiting for a decision that could change everything. Would love prevail, or would they be lost in the darkness forever? The shadows roared around them, wild and chaotic, as if hungry for all that was light and good. Marek's grip tightened. Fear flowed through him, but he couldn't let it drown out the spark of hope that flickered against the encroaching darkness. Tarek's body trembled, caught in the push and pull of loyalty and despair, and Marek could feel the weight of their past pressing heavily upon them. Tarek! Marek's voice cut through the roar. Look at me. We can still save ourselves. We can save them. In that instant, Tarek's gaze shifted, flickering between the shadows and Marek's determined eyes. Just then, from the depths of the darkness, another priest lunged forth, his voice a ragged whisper as he cried out for help, his features contorted with agony. Marek's heart sank further. No. They're victims. He screamed, feeling a swell of desperation rising. We have to break the curse. The priests are not lost to us, they are our allies. As if summoned by his words, a brilliant flash erupted from the artifact, illuminating their surroundings in bright, crystal clarity. The shadows recoiled, hissing as the light pushed against them. Marek felt the warmth penetrate his skin, igniting a flame of courage in his chest. Focus, Tarek. Marek cried, pain glimmering in his voice. Focus on the light, on what's right. Tarek's expression hardened as he fought against the shadows that pulled at him, their whispers growing louder, more persuasive, tempting him to surrender to despair. It's so easy to give in. No. Marek forced himself closer, inching forward, ready to plunge into the darkness if it meant reaching his brother. It's easy to give in, but it's brave to fight. You are not alone. With every ounce of his being, Marek pulled Tarek's arm, intertwining their fingers. Whatever strength he had left, he poured it into their connection, feeling the rush of their shared desires, their longing to protect their home, to save their people. For a brief moment, Tarek hesitated, uncertainty flashed in his eyes. The shadows retorted, swirling violently, grasping in rage at their defiance. Stop, you don't know what they will do to you, Tarek stammered. And then it happened, the artifact pulsed, the light flaring brighter, momentarily blinding. The shadows recoiled, and Marek heard the priests' voices blending with his own, chanting a united prayer. Their strength surged through the air, a tide rising against the shadows, but just when Marek thought he broke through the darkness, a shriek pierced the night, a soldier, wrenched away and swallowed whole by the moving shadows, screaming in terror. Marek's stomach twisted at the sight, fear clawing at his heart. As each second slipped away, others crumbled, their fear overwhelming their courage. Tarek looked around, panic etched across his features. What if it's too late? What if I can't fight it? Then we fight together. Marek yelled, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. No matter what. Nothing can tear us apart if we stand united. Tarek's breath hitched as he grappled with the shadows and the memories that tried to drown him. Then, with a sudden inundation of resolve, their fingers locked tighter. Tarek centered his gaze, and the flicker of hope ignited a fire in his core. But before they could fully unite their strength, a powerful surge from the shadows broke their grip, forcing Tarek backward, and for a terrifying moment, Marek feared he would lose him forever. Tarek! He shouted, desperately reaching out, but an unseen force yanked Tarek further away, swallowing him in a dark vortex. Time slowed as Marek screamed, a guttural, raw sound like a man losing everything he ever loved. Would he be able to save his brother from the consuming darkness, or had the shadows finally claimed their prize? As the chaos reigned, a haunting realization dawned on Marek. To save Tarek, he would have to confront not just the shadows, but the dark truth buried deep within their hearts. What lay ahead? Would the light rise again, or would shadows reign supreme? Marek felt the world cave in around him when Tarek was yanked away, swallowed by shadows that seemed to dance with glee at the terror they had wrought. Pain exploded in Marek's chest. The noise of battle faded, replaced by the solitary thump of his heart racing. No, no, no. He gasped, fighting against the tide of despair threatening to swallow him, too. He could feel the electric crackle of energy pulsing from the artifact, and for a heartbeat, he wondered if it really held the power to save them or if it would lead to their ultimate destruction. That he took a shaky breath, determination surging through his veins as his gaze found Tarek's terrified face like a reflection of himself, battling against the cruel grip of despair. Marek surged forward, defiance igniting within him. The weight of their past, the laughter, the promises, everything they had shared weighed on his soul. A flash of anger spurred him on. Tarek! You can fight this! Marek shouted, his voice rising above the chaos. You're not alone. You are my brother. The shadows writhed, angry tendrils ready to lash out again, but Marek pushed through the terror. The faces of their fallen comrades, the soldiers beside him, burned vivid memories in his mind. They had fought together, and now, he refused to let darkness erase their legacy. Tarek! He bellowed again, feeling the heat of the artifact radiate, taming the shadows just enough for his voice to reach. This is the moment to choose. We fight together, or we fall together. For a moment, raw emotion flickered across Tarek's face, a whirlwind of fear and hope. Shadows recoiled as if sensing the moment could slip from their grasp. Marek, I can't. Tarek's voice trembled, pulled between the glow of hope and the suffocating weight of darkness. I don't know if I can resist. Yes, you can. Marek reached out, pushing toward the shadows, feeling every ounce of his love for his brother coursing through him. Remember who we are. We are more than this. Nothing can break us if we stand united. In that heartbeat, the world stood still. Tarek's eyes flickered, grasping at remnants of memories, of courage found in their shared history. The shadows hissed, vibrating with rage, as if the very essence of betrayal was drawing close. With every breath, Marek anchored himself to the truth. He wouldn't lose Tarek, not now when they were so close to breaking free. Fight, brother! He shouted, the urgency fueling him like a wildfire. We can reshape our fate together. You have the strength within you. Tarek shook his head, the shadows swirling nearer, but the flicker of hope was now a fire. Together, he whispered, voice hardly audible against the thunderous chaos. Marek pressed onward. Together. In one fluid motion, he lunged, grasping Tarek's outstretched hand. The warmth connected them, a lifeline forged against despair. In that moment, the air crackled, a jolt surging as the shadows hissed, recoiling from their unity. The artifact pulsed, its light transforming into a beacon radiating brilliance against encroaching dread. We are brothers. We choose light. Marek shouted, their clasp strong as the shadows retreated in fear. Tarek's eyes widened, fighting against the pulsating darkness that grasped at his heart. Stay with me! He cried. Always! Marek shouted back, steady determination rippling through him. The light surged, illuminating their path. The artifact erupted, the brilliance forcing back the shadows with a blinding fury, dispelling the whispers of despair that had consumed their bond for far too long, and then it happened. The darkness splintered, fracturing under the weight of their choice, twisting into wisps that faded away. Tarek fell into Marek, the two brothers entwined in a fierce embrace. Cries of victory echoed in the air, reverberating across the battlefield. The soldiers found their resolve, rallying against the collapsing darkness, uniting against what had sought to divide them. The priests, freed from the artifact's grip, joined their voices to a new chant, a chant for rebirth, for hope, igniting the very ground they fought. As dawn broke, the battlefield transformed. No longer was it a site of chaos, but a place for healing. Tarek and Marek stood side by side, the warmth of the rising sun cascading over their faces. The light brought new life, flooding out the scars of betrayal, ushering in a promise of unity. Together, we fought, Tarek whispered, a soft smile breaking through the remnants of their harrowing fight. Together, we will heal, Marek replied, his voice steady and sure. The battle against darkness had forged them stronger, weaving a bond that could never break again. For the shadows had sought to tear them asunder, yet they had emerged whole. The whispers of betrayal now echoed with promise. A new beginning awaited them, one built on trust, brotherhood, and devotion to their people. As the sun rose higher, illuminating the land once marred by division, they knew they had faced the darkness, emerged victorious, and rebuilt a legacy of unity that would resonate through generations to come. Remember the bond they forged together, such struggles make the heart stronger. Now it was time for Marek and Tarek to lead their people into a brighter future. This is not just the end, it's a new beginning. Don't let this journey be the last you hear. You need to subscribe now to catch exclusive stories that await you. Smash the like button and show your support. It helps the channel thrive. Flood the comments with your reactions, share your theories about the ending, and let us connect. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion. Your voice matters, this community grows with you.